Like overused Velcro, I lost my capacity to bond. I got an STD or 5. We'd never thought, man, that's a really good argument about the benefits of colonialism, but I bet you have a tiny dick. So you get like low IQ replicants coming at your ass, sometimes it seems like. I was horny.
My dude, I have a keen sense that you are not a stranger to the whole concept and the brand of Magic the Gathering. I myself, I'm not a fucking nerd. I'm not a little nerd who plays with cards and gets excited with different characters and stuff like that. I would know nothing about it. I'm not a nerd. But the real sort of gathering, the magic gathering of your progeny, it always happens, dude, on a piece of tissue. And then it ends with a flushing sound.
Shame. Shame.
It's kind of like we're in the woods. In these woods, we look around in the fog, walking through the fog, looking for companionship, for sex. Yeah, okay, I said it. And we're looking around, and it's a little bit also, for the purposes of this metaphor, it's also a little schizophrenic, because everywhere young honeys are laughing and connecting with men on Tumble, on Rinder, on these applications. And we're lost. Like, what's going on, man? It's like there's a cycle of life kind of thing you see on the Discovery Channel, and frankly everywhere, like at the mall with humans. Why not jump in there? What is preventing this? And I really have been thinking about it long and hard. And I really got to the meat of this fog, of this loneliness. There is a language we don't speak. I speak 2 languages, you speak 1. But there's also a barrier, there's a wall. The answer is player tips. Some people are born with player tips. Like, they're not really tips to them. Like, they're just born, they organically develop. They start kind of with a thing, with the peekaboo kind of a thing, the facial expressions, the loud noises. Those things, they start with that stuff. They just kind of, it's like they found an old pants and they're wearing them. And then for the rest of us, you might be seduced by pickup artists, but the whole thing is a schema. It's a schema, it's a scam, it's false flag. It's kind of like Sandy Hook every day. These are all false flag actors. It's really, frankly, it's fucking white slavery is what that is. Motherfuckers. Fucking cunts. We're not gonna talk about it. We're talking about like organic player tips that you pick up from people.
Ari is so crazy. I don't trust him for a second. I'm so scared of Ari Shaffir.
So crazy.
He is fucking crazy. I'm so scared of Ari Shaffir.
So crazy.
He is fucking crazy.
Yeah, so you see, my man, like, player tips, they don't come from these like false flag books or different schemas and lies. You have to go to the source. And here to Rogan, it just comes naturally. Women like big eyes and noises. They really want it to be kind of like a fucking zoo. Because if you think about like babies and cats and Joe Rogan in that clip, they all have like fucking big eyes. So this is something you just want to take it organic, like something kind of like loud noises, dude. Yeah, man, and like big eyes and stuff.
I think he's evil. I think Ari Shaffir is secretly evil.
Secretly evil?
Yeah, I think.
For real?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
For real? For real? I'm almost 50. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just kind of snapped there. Yeah, right, it's kind of a playful thing. The big eyes, the noises, you fucking move around, you know, the tips.
Still hilarious. It's more funny than it is crazy.
That's what he's trying to accomplish.
And that's what I do
Here's
like
what's
about
really
Ari.
Funny. They were both on Molly because Ari took it himself.
And that's what I do
Here's
like
what's
about
really
Ari.
funny. They were both on Molly because Ari took it himself. And Bert's like, what?
And then all of a sudden,
And then he realizes, like, what? What's going on? He realizes, and the Ari's like, I put some in your drink. He's like, and he's home with his family.
like, I need an excuse to be bad, to be what I really want to be, which is high,
Right.
slutty,
Yeah.
and mean. Like,
Mean?
roast. It's an excuse
roast.
to be mean. It's an excuse to be
Right.
evil.
Oh, okay.
I had to do these
You
jokes.
had to.
What am I going to go to a roast and compliment everyone? I
You
can't
had
do
to.
that. So
Yeah.
there's always I had to.
I get it.
I'm looking at my camera right now, looking for things to say, but in fact, there's nothing to say. I mean, you saw it all. I look at Joe's eyes. This motherfucker is on the prowl in the cafeteria, in the high school cafeteria out there. You're eating the shitty pizza. Joe's playing peekaboo, making sounds, laughing uproariously, you know, doing the big eyes, all those things you missed out on, all these facial expressions that, because you have to keep their attention. It's like playing with a cat. You don't put the mouse down somewhere else and go play with cards with Magic the Gathering. This is where you went wrong with all the nerd shit. How are women supposed to interact with you if you don't, you know, leap around and do these things, dude? You've grown antisocial and now you're entitled to something.
Victoria, Jonathan,
I'm not
come on
happy.
over here.
I am
over
not
here.
happy.
You're the biggest on the planet.
Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't assault people. What are you doing?
Oh, but well, you're.
Yeah, it's called
Johnny.
strategy. He's yelling
That's
at
not
you.
a
You can't
strategy.
run up to him and hit him. Look, if you and your husband hit each other, that's one thing. You don't run up and hit other contestants. No, hey. No.
He got in Joe's face.
And then he got too close to Joe.
Please.
Oh my God.
And then all of a sudden they start going at it, and I was like, all right, I gotta break this up because Joe's gonna kill him.
Hey.
And we have to go still, and my partner's crying.
This isn't gonna make or break us. The disappointment is just not being able to go further because I know that we have it in us to go further.
Joe's gonna kill him.
Look, if you and your husband hit each other, that's one thing. You don't run up and hit other contestants. No, hey. No.
Circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
Like, that's why I like bondage. It's like, oh no, like, I can't do this thing. I'm forced to do this dirty thing. I don't really want to do this. I'm like, you made me wear this swimsuit on TV. I can't not be a slut.
The shoulder thing.
It's just like, helpless slut.
But Joe Rogan's podcast is not the only place we can learn about the ladies, how to approach them, and how to place them in the overall scheme of existence. In fact, last year there was a convention. Mostly men have attended this convention that was titled Make Women Great Again. Naturally, a stupid shit show like that could only happen in Florida. And because every dumpster fire needs a hero, this convention definitely had one. There was one man who had to be there for this. He was needed there. He leapt in there. And of course, I'm here talking about the philosopher. It's the human face of coronavirus, Stefan Molyneux. Now, naturally, I don't like to drag my balls across broken glass. And for this reason, I'm really not familiar with the other speakers at this convention. But I did check out Stefan's presentation, and I will now offer constructive and measured criticism of it, the kind of civilized criticism of Stefan Molyneux that I cherish. on this channel. The Immanuel Kant of our times. A fucking beady-eyed, fucking sneaky cunt. Stefan Molyneux over there in Poland. But if you don't have time for that, let me kind of summarize for you the big theme. And the big theme for the philosopher was metapause. It basically, all roads of his philosophy and deductive reasoning about women, they lead to metapause. Now, you know that song, Like a Rolling Stone? Like a Rolling Stone. Like Rolling Stones, these little harlots, these little sluts, they're rolling to menopause. They're on birth control. They're being pounded by minority dicks each day and every day, wasting their time on their woman studies, just kind of very ditzy, trifling away their life. These little sluts, these harlots. And eventually they're going to regret not having sex with us and procreating with us. That's the big idea that the philosopher had. That pretty much sums it up.
Welcome back to the 21 Convention 2019 of Orlando, Florida. Our next speaker you can find at freedomain.com. He has over 600 million podcast downloads and about 1 million YouTube subscribers. And in my judgment, he's one of the greatest living philosophers alive today.
You see, the guys, they all lost to Stefan at Mario Kart. And then he forced them into this embarrassing Prime Minister of Lithuania cosplay with Stefan in the main role.
He's also dedicated to reason, philosophy, and saving Western civilization.
Hey Stefan, I'm no security expert, but I think that the 5-foot, 65-year-old man in sunglasses on your left, I think he's the weakest link when you're going to be tackled by the social justice warrior with unshaved legs. Some kind of a hefty broad is going to go after you. He's fucking, you got to watch out. I'm sure he means well, and I mean, he looks very masculine, but you really have to work on that, Stefan. I mean, there's kind of danger lurks in this fucking empty convention center where you walk around with a bunch of dopes and a mall cop.
Gentlemen, without further ado, please let me welcome to the stage, Stefan Molyneux.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Motherfuckers, that was a close call, man. Don't tell me you're not surprised to see Stefan alive, making it alive through that lobby with all that security. I mean, man, that was a dangerous terrain. And it's like fucking philosopher didn't give a shit. Like laughing, almost laughing in the face of danger in that Florida Convention Center. He just kind of stood there in the middle of it, guarded. The mall cop was there. It really is kind of a circle around him, a circle of different passive-aggressive racists. I mean, this cordon of security, and especially that geriatric there, man, he really looks intense. He really looks intense.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. You guys can hear me all right? Good, good. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to my superpower. And my superpower is something that I kind of discovered at an early age. I'm going to pass it along to you so that you can use it to really help the world.
Stefan, which superpower are you talking about? Is this the one where you're able to shed your tail, drop your tail at the sign of the predator, and then regrow a new one? Because we've talked about it before, baby. The rest of us can't do it. We can't fucking do that shit.
The superpower is really fascinating because we live in a post-philosophical society. We live in a post-reason society, in a post-evidence society.
What's the superpower, Stefan? Stop being such a fucking tease already, right? If it's the one you told me before where you can lay in a rock motionless for hours, reduce your metabolism by 30 to 50% while sunbathing, we can't do that, Stefan. We can't pull it through. We have a different system.
And it's really fascinating how we've got rid of universal ethics and replaced it with insanely complex, vicious judgments. There's an old saying that says if you get rid of the big laws, You don't get no laws, you get thousands of tiny laws.
Liar, liar, philosopher pants on fire. There's no such saying, Stefan. Nobody at a Waffle House like turns to somebody else and says, hey, you know, when you get rid of a few laws, there are a lot of little laws that come about. And the waitress is like, yep, that's kind of a common saying. That's what we say here in Dayton, Ohio. When you have one law and you get rid of it, there's going to be a lot more laws, and they're going to be shitty. At most, it's a sentiment, Stefan. That's not an actual saying.
And that's the case. There were 10 commandments. How many commandments are there in woke leftist culture? 10,000 and counting.
So the 10 commandments are part of the law of Moses, which are fucking 5 books, Stefan. And there are altogether 613 commandments. So there's just not the 10 commandments. There are many more commandments than that. Fucking let's meet at Red Lobster. It's not easy being a Hasidic Jew for this reason.
So once you understand that nobody has any values, objective values. I mean, there are Christians, which I respect, and that's great. But in terms of the public square, it's dominated largely by postmodernists, relativists, subjectivists, neo-Marxists, outright Marxists. And it's all power. It's all power and manipulation. So the superpower, which I'm going to put on full display today, is this. If you don't have a problem with what you're saying, other people are like, okay. That's a very, very powerful thing. If I don't have a problem with what I'm saying, it's really hard for other people to have a problem with what I'm saying.
Boo! What a fucking boring superpower, Stefan. I mean, this is a big disappointment. I mean, file this baby under trite self-help shit. If I don't care what I'm saying, then other people aren't gonna hurt my feelings. Stefan, how underwhelming.
So with that in mind, I will demonstrate the superpower. Particularly in this room at this convention, there are so many of us who have so much to say to women.
And why do you have so much to say to women, you dorks at this convention? These are the last people anybody should be listening to. Fucking a bunch of losers who flew to Florida to have a convention about women. You have something to say to women? To like old ladies at the grocery store? To women at hair salons? What the fuck are you talking about? Women are half the population. What do you fucking losers have to say to them? You can't get laid. You want to talk to babes. You're angry with babes. We want to say something to these babes. You know, let's be honest with ourselves. It's like the harlots, the babes, won't have sex with us. You know, what do you have to say to other women? Half the population. Stefan, most white women voted for Trump. What do you have to say to them? What do we have to say to kind of random demographics? For a long time, I wanted to get off something off my chest to Armenians with long foreskins. When will I need to fucking get a fucking convention for that in Orlando.
And we don't. Why? Because we're scared. And I'll tell you why. We have good reason to be scared. So this speech is everything we want to say to women. Now, we only have an hour. So I'm going to speak really fast. It's going to sound like faxing.
As one hears the self-satisfied chuckles rolling smoothly through the audience, you can't forget that each one of these bitter, thirsty clowns have paid around $1,100 to hear Stefan's golden zingers that sound like they were written to him by some notorious serial killer like the BTK or somebody like that.
I'm going to generalize. Just brace yourself. I'm going to generalize. Because, you know, there's this rule on the internet and in public discourse that you say, here's a general rule. Here's an exception. I know. I know. Men on average are taller than women. Oh, yeah? I know a tall woman. And that's how you take discourse out back of the woodshed and put a bullet in its head. But we're gonna do it anyway. Because, you know, we're talking about men and women and there are generalities to be made. So the first question is, and you guys let me know what you think. I don't think I'm alone in being scared of telling women the truth. It seems to be If you ever follow my Twitter account, you can see that stating basic biological and evolutionary truths appears to be attempting to dry hump a wasp's nest. The guys who laugh are the guys who've tried it. So that's like vivid personal experience, right?
Arguing with women is a little bit like painting your balls like Simba the lion and then running through the hyena enclosure. That's not a weird metaphor. I'm not an asexual psychopath.
I'm not pleased to see you. I just humped a wasp nest earlier. You know, the thing I love about live speaking is I never know what I'm going to say. So I say things like that, sentences I never thought I'd say in my life. Okay, so if you've been nervous, just, you know, throw your hand up and you bellow something out. If you've been nervous, oh yeah, okay, the wasp nest guys. Why do you think, or is it true for you, that you feel nervous to tell women basic truths like, there's a wall, you know, stuff like that, right? What do you think? Why are you nervous?
Well, they don't accept it. It could get real heated.
Could get heated, okay. They won't accept it. What else? They will freak out? Yeah, based on what evidence? I'm just kidding. No, what?
They want to shoot the messenger.
They want to shoot the messenger, okay. Anything else?
Most of the time they won't understand it anyways.
They won't understand it anyways, okay. So it's like, you know, teaching cha-cha to a meerkat or something, okay.
The one person who's not going to be doing the cha-cha is Stefan's wife because she's chained to the radiator.
But that wouldn't be fear. That would just be like, why bother, right? So is it fear of blowback? Is it fear of being attacked? Right? But, you know, women are smaller in general, and, you know, it's online, so they're not like in the room, right, with some machete. I think that there's a good reason why we're scared. Because women can kill us. And I don't mean physically, I mean genetically. Because we're talking about the West here, right? So in the West, consent has been the norm for reproduction for thousands of years.
And this is exactly why when I went to the 2019 Ohio Renaissance Festival, I went as a total consent night. Hey there, Lady Elizabeth. I know I have been galloping with a long pole, but when it comes to conquering your castle, I will do it with gentle kisses and medieval foreplay.
So, what can women do to us that's so terrifying? Well, they can say no. They can say no. Do you know what percentage of men throughout history have not reproduced?
Who gives a shit?
60%. 60%? Anyone else? 98. Are you from Saudi Arabia? I'm just. So it depends where you look at, but the number is around 40% of men did not reproduce. Now that sucks.
So I checked just now, and the human population is 7.7 billion people. This is right now. This is March of 2020 as I'm filming. So presumably in Stefan's fantasy, where the reproduction rate would be around 100%, over the generations, we would be living in a world with over 15 billion people, with over 20 billion right now, and then it would grow exponentially from there. Who fucking needs it? But I also suspect that the statistic itself is bullshit. I mean, it must include like high child mortality, and then how could women's reproductive rate outpace those of men unless there was a hidden polygamy cult aside from the Mormons in the West?
Like, yeah, I think, what is it, 3 billion, 4 billion years of evolution? I think of all that struggle, you know, like some single-celled organism eyeballing the open air saying, all right, we're going to make a break for it. We're going out of the ocean. We're hitting the sand, boys. And then fighting and dying and then like 4 billion years, and then she says no, that's it. It's like the Texas sharpshooter just blows off your balls because the evolution of your entire line stops there when she says no.
So here we see Stefan carrying on about the importance of reproduction, how important it is to leave something behind as far as a genetic trace, and yet as far as I know, that motherfucker only has one child, one progeny. That's not replacement level. So of course here I'm talking about Stefan's free-range children, you know, his uncaged kids. I don't know who's munching on dog food in the basement because they haven't yet memorized fucking Atlas Shrugged or what's going on there. It's too hideous to contemplate. But the very arguments are very stupid as well. None of us are the last members of our species. So if one of us doesn't reproduce, it's not the fucking end of our species. All we are as mammals are bags of genes that came through us through different sources. We're an intersection of different genes from a variety of different individuals over the generations. And so, if one of us dies, our genes still continue. In my case, in other Russians, or others from our biomass, from our genetic pool. It's the genes that matter. It's not the individual members. A person could have great genes, but then they might have one shitty gene, and they die at age 12. Since when has evolution become some sort of a, I don't know, sex communism where everybody gets some according to their need and not their ability or whatever the fuck? You know, evolution depends on somebody not getting laid. Everybody doesn't get laid in nature, and why should they?
Like, here's an interesting question. Tell me what you guys think. Why on earth do men go to war? Now, there are wars like people are invading, guys are invading your local space, right? So there are those wars where it's like, okay, I regret, I gotta pull out my sword and go fight or whatever. But, you know, like Syria, Kuwait, Iraq, I mean, just like, why do guys go to war? To preserve life. Well, yeah, but it doesn't. I mean, really, you know, war in Syria, Libya, I mean, this doesn't preserve life, right? Okay, so yeah, you don't want to be called a pussy, right? Okay, what else? Why? You guys know, you're woke enough, right, to these issues. You know about the white feather campaign. A man can be killed with a feather. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. And I'm not just talking some like Swedish BDSM thing, but, or am I? In the First World War, everybody was, like the British were very enthusiastic. Why? Because there hadn't been a war in Western Europe since the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815. And after a while, people were like, I don't really want to go. Like, it's trench warfare, which is just about the worst thing. So men didn't want to go. So enlistments just cratered. So women would take a white feather and they would walk up and down the streets. And if they saw a military-aged man who was not in uniform, they would hand him a white feather, which was a symbol of cowardice. And this was terrifying to men. Now, this makes no sense when you think about it, but then it does. So it makes no sense because, like, ooh, a feather. Sure, I'll go get my ass blown off in a trench. But here's the thing. The reason that men go to war is because women won't sleep with them if they don't. That's it. And this motivates so much of what we do. If you go to war, you got a 50% chance of passing on your genes. If you don't go to war, you have 0% chance of passing on your genes. That's why we're scared. Because all the men who said, I don't care what women think, offended and upset women, where they were like, no thanks, boy. Sorry, we're closed. You can get birth control for 10 cents. Just hold it there.
Boy, do I have a feather for you, Caliph al-Baghdadi, if you will return as a coward. Oh, my friends, check this out. The Alawites have not been considered Muslims for much of their history. They believe in reincarnation. They're very cool with drinking alcohol because they actually use it during Mass. They have communion, just like Christians, and most Muslims don't. They're a very strange sect, and they were marginal in the history of Syria until the French colonialists showed up, and they elevated them for power in a very trite divide and conquer scheme that worked. Alawites were the elite of the military in Syria under colonial occupation. And then when colonial occupation ended, the Alawites seized power under Papa Assad and now under Bashar al-Assad. Okay? And so during the Muslim Spring, as happened before, the majority of Syria, who are mainstream Sunni Muslims, they rebelled against this regime that is run by a disliked minority. okay? And then the minority Christians supported the Alawites because they were afraid of the takeover by Sunnis. And then the Kurds started to reconcile their ground and trying to create an autonomous region. And then in the chaos of this war and this uprising, fucking Islamic State jumped in and tried to fucking create the caliphate. You know, the motherfuckers jumped in. It's like, this is the time for the caliphate. Did I mention that Alawites believe in reincarnation? They're just kind of an odd bunch, but they're ruling the country right now. They won the war because Iran supports them and Russia wanted to wave its dick. America interfered. And, you know, and I guess the point of this is that none of this has anything fucking to do with anybody wanting to get laid. It's just not fucking on the agenda there. It's just not what literally anybody fucking is thinking about there. Stefan, you fucking idiot. You motherfucking moron. It's like their big blue balls just kind of somehow drain all their blood from their tiny brain and everything becomes about getting laid. But it's not. There are no fucking white feathers to fucking hand out to anybody there. It's like the ladies there aren't even in a position to fucking give anybody white feathers, as they haven't for much of our history. People fight because we're social animals and territorial animals, and it makes sense for us to fight. And somehow for many people it makes more sense to literally give your life for this abstract notion we call a country, rather than like volunteer for the homeless or something for 2 years. People more readily do it because it's kind of within us. And our closest relatives, the chimpanzees and bonobos, are just like us. Nobody's here to get laid.
The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men.
The other thing I'd like to mention here is, check this out. Here in the United States, we have an all-volunteer military. Now, the active duty force I looked up is over 1 million people. Most of them are men. So this is just a bunch of cucks couldn't get laid any other way, according to Stefan. Why would they join the military? The only reason is to fucking procreate. Just a bunch of losers and cucks, according to the philosopher. Hey guys, there are other ways to get laid. Honestly, yeah, like for example, I hang out outside of bathrooms at the mall and offer teenagers, you know, different vaping systems than Juul. So I mean, you know, come fucking join me.
So if women said, we're not going to sleep with you if you don't fight, you go fight, because then you've got a chance to continue your genes. Otherwise, it ends right there. So we're scared. Now, do you guys do Twitter? Just hands up if you do.
And then the woman denies you, and your whole genetic heritage, your whole genetic tree, family tree, just goes into the toilet. Hey guys, anybody on Tumblr? Anybody knows how to do custom fonts on Tumblr? Kind of a weird transition, Stefan, but don't worry guys, it's gonna go into another fucking moronic argument.
All right. Okay, so on Twitter, there's kind of like a cliche, like if you upset women, what do the women say? Incel. Incel, right? Involuntary celibate, right?
Who hurt you?
Who hurt you? What else? You live in your mom's basement, right? Neckbeard, right?
No penis.
Sorry?
No penis. Racist.
So, yeah, you can't get laid, small penis, your mommy issues, and so on, right? Now, that, of course, is, you know how, like, they do things in the military? They'll paint you with a target that you can't see, and then some other infrared thing points out the target. So women, what they're trying to do is draw a moat around you, and they'll say this very explicitly online. They'll say, ladies, here's a symbol, here's exactly who you should never date. And they'll broadcast it out across the gynocentric undertow network, right? Don't date this guy, right? That's genetic death. It's the rejection sharpshooter that takes off your balls.
My dude, what Stefan said just there isn't just a pure abstraction to me. It is something that hit me in my very essence, at my very heart. This kind of thing that goes on. So let me tell you my sad story, so you really handle yourself carefully and understand the minefield, the dangers involved that we should traverse very carefully, okay? So this happened a few months ago, and I decided, I was kind of in a jovial mood. I decided to go online and do a little justice of my own. So I popped on over to Anita Sarkeesian's Twitter page, and frankly I wrote down, "Hey you sneaky cunt, hashtag remember Gamergate." So then just a few moments afterward, I see a notification on my Twitter, and then I discovered that some sort of a broad popped in and called me a little dick on Twitter. Little did I know that this was perhaps a lethal blow to my genetic bloodline. You see, for some time now I have been courting a certain young lady. Some people might judge her for her lifestyle and her kind of a wild ways, but I always felt that we had a unique bond. She comes from a different walk of life than I do, and her profession, I guess some people can look down upon, but I didn't, because there was something unique between us. She was an exotic dancer, and I went to the club, and like always, you know, after one song I kind of played a little kind of, you know, tension game with her as to whether I'm gonna get the second one, and you know, then of course I did. So since I've been coming there for 7 months at that point, I decided to take a little risk, you know, and kind of pop the question and get her digits. And I did. So bros, you know, with the lady, you don't want to seem too desperate with those things. Like when you get a number, you just don't want it to make it seem like there's nothing else going on in your life. So about an hour and a half after I got the number from Sparkles, I looked her up in my contacts, which wasn't difficult. And then I made the call. And here's when I entered the zone of pain and sorrow. Because when I dialed the number, on the other line was the Dragon Dynasty Chinese restaurant in Dayton, Ohio. And they also do sushi also. The synchronicity, the subtle tension between us, I have been there to observe it for 7 months, and you weren't there. We talked about a lot. Talked about her boyfriend, and both of us agreed that he wasn't good for her. We talked about the community college. We talked about the nursing program. This is just not a regular relationship between a patron and a stripper. This was something between a man and a woman. How we met and the whole professional nature of our engagement is completely incidental to the story. There was an inertia, there was a wind in my back. I was climbing up the Pussy Mountain. How did I end up in the No Pussy Valley? I didn't slip. I was pushed. Now, if you're the type of a person who believes in coincidences, this was no coincidence. I dared to challenge Anita on Twitter. I was called a little dick. And then my genetic fate was sealed. It was like a sharpshooter blowing my balls off. What's going on with Sparkles? Nothing is going on. Because she found out that I entered the no hoochie circle, magic circle. What's going on now, man? I'm living in a surreal world. This is like the walls are moving around me, and things are just falling apart all over the place now that this happened on Twitter. And I'd like to say that this is just like that famous book, the famous novel by the French philosopher Fyodor Kafka, the Animal Trial. That's where I am right now. I'm on trial with these dames just because I said Anita is a sneaky cunt on Twitter. I mean, it's like I'm kind of Lawrence of Arabia, like what's on the fucking weather forecast. It's dryness. It's complete dryness. You'll see if I ever get to ride between the humps of a camel with this stuff, what goes on Twitter. I mean, look at it this way, man. When you see parrots, you saw a lot of parrots, speak human language on YouTube and stuff. You see those motherfuckers, like at the pet store, at the zoo, what do they sound like? That kind of shit, the noises that they make. What are you, stupid? They're fucking talking in code. And women are just like that. You think that they're ditzy and all they care about is yoga pants, but they're communicating with each other constantly about who's gonna get laid. I urge you, man, be careful with the memes, be careful with tweets to different celebrities and so on. You really have to be careful, man. Let this be a warning for you.
Genetically, they are warriors, because a warrior can end your bloodline if he kills you before you have children or kills your children as well. Women can do the same thing. Now, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Of course, women should be able to say no to anyone and everyone that they want, but let's at least recognize that that's a very powerful thing. And all the men who said, I don't care, offended women, the women didn't sleep with them, and that indifference was weeded right out of the gene pool. Right? So we're scared because we're smart, and we're scared because we're these blind photocopiers who want to make more of us, and we need women to do it. So that's why it's hard to tell women the truth, because if they get mad and they tell all the other women, and remember, our brains, we don't know that there's more than 100 people around. Because we grew up in these little villages, these little tribes, little farming communities, and so on. It's like Amish horizon world to our lizard brains. So if women start the slander campaign against you, you're done. So you can't anger women.
If Stefan's argumentative arc in the previous clip was like a rainbow, then at the end of that rainbow there would be no pot of gold, more like a pot of paranoid schizophrenia. Because here's how it goes. First, Stefan says, we're afraid of women. We're afraid to tell women what we really think, and we have good reasons. Then he says, our lizard brain sees small horizons, like the Amish country, like as if we live in a small, enclosed community where what we say matters. And we treat the online world this way, as if what we put on Twitter will somehow decimate to all the women in our area code. So Stefan clearly says, this is the lizard brain. He says this is what we have, small horizons. We're just conditioned as if we live in a small community. Seemingly saying that it's utterly irrational, insane bullshit. But then in the next step, he's like, fucking be afraid. Be very afraid. You're gonna fucking have a pussy famine with this shit. I mean, Stefan, why did you... It sounds like some of us, maybe the lizard brain is all we have.
So you can't anger women. Except today. Maybe it's because I already have a kid. Maybe it's because I'm very happily married. I don't know. But I have the capacity to sow. So these are the things that I think we should talk about. And I think women should hear. Because it's one thing to have the genetic death power. It's another thing to have the sexual power. It's another thing to have the outvoting men political power, outliving men political power. You put all those things together. And the great danger is you create a generation of vapid, self-obsessed narcissists who explode into 2-year-old tantrum, toddler explosions of verbal abuse whenever their omnipotent wills are crossed. And we want to make sure that never happens in the future. Because it might. It just might.
And we're going to make sure of that by cackling about menopause at a convention center in Florida.
In no particular order, this is what I think women need to hear. Number one, the wall takes no prisoners. What does that mean? Is it sell by date? Your eggs are going to die. All the power, like nature balances out, right? All the sexual power that women have when they're young falls off a cliff in extraordinary rapidity. Now, here's the thing, though, is that when we're young and we have less sexual market value than women, supply and demand, hormones and receptivity, we can, if we can screw up for a while, and I'm sure everyone has, I know I have, but then you can recover, right? So, you know, I went to theater school. I got a history degree because I'm all about the earning, right? But then I was like, wake up, dude. And I went and started a software company. So you can shake it off and you can turn things around if you make, but if a woman takes full advantage of that sexual magnetism of youth and, you know, Oingo Boingo's around the community, then by the time she hits her late 30s, it's too late. And then you get like a half century of regret. And one of my biggest tweets over the last couple of months was me just saying, women, your eggs die at 40, you live to 80. What are you going to do for 40 years?
One thing they're not going to do is have any regrets about not having children with any of the boys there at the convention center. That's kind of one thing they're not going to do. But aside from that, you know, what's the worst case scenario? They're just going to be sexless and sitting around watching YouTube videos. In other words, that state would not be entirely unfamiliar to the guys there.
I think that's a reasonable question. It is. And because I don't have a problem asking it, people get mad, and I just think it's, okay, like, this is how you toughen up, right? This is how you toughen up. I remember when I was a kid, I mean, we all have the same. I had a Scottish teacher of gym teacher, which is barely a teacher, but, and he had this, you know, full-on Scottish whiskey tobacco breath and all of that, right? And I remember getting my face slammed into the wood on the ground during wrestling, and, you know, you walk it off, you know? Walk it off. It's like, it's my face. I don't walk on my face. Anyway. But of course, you know, a girl stubs her toes and like, nurse! Right? It's just, I don't know, it's double standards, which are kind of inevitable, right? But there's a wall. And by the time the woman figures out that there's a wall, it's too late. And that's, you know, if we care about women, and of course we should, then we have to remind them about the wall. It's important. The power that they have will not last. And they need to choose the best man they can in the bloom of their youth and sexual beauty, because it's going to fade. And just remind. Train women, and also train women how to spot guys who are unreliable. You know, like the rakes, the guys who'll use women and just toss them aside, and the pump and dumps and the, you know, dine and dash kind of guys, right? To train them how to do that. Because now women seem to have completely lost the ability to figure out the good guys from the bad guys. And we just need to remind them.
Whatever the boys have paid to attend that convention, I have to say it was definitely worth it, because we have established one thing. Women have menopause, and men don't have menopause. If nothing else, Stefan really took the time to underline this specific point. So there are other sort of checks and balances that Mother Nature puts on older men's ability to procreate, you know. But today we have the pills, we fucking get that blood circulation going. But all of that aside, check this out. Most men become fathers before the age of 40, before hypothetical male menopause. And by most, I mean 90%. And out of the remaining 10%, the vast majority have children between the age of 40 to 50, and the majority of those have those children between 40 and 45. So effectively, you have those hypothetical 10 years, and of course, hypothetically, it stretches into infinity, and unless your fucking balls are chopped off or you die, yes, it's true. You know, there's still a party going on downstairs. You know, the sperm are still fucking sliding on, I don't know, in their fucking organic water park. I fucking want to kill everything in this fucking metaphor already. I want everything to fucking die. But let's say I'm 50 years old, right? Which is kind of relatively young, I guess, by old people standards. Young, old. I'm 50 years old and I scored with a young honey, right? And now we're gonna have a baby. And then I will be looking forward to picking up my young Boris from his high school soccer game at age 15. At my own age of 65. How fun would that fucking be? You know, right after the prostate exam, I'm gonna fucking, you know, snatch you over. If of course I also get lucky with a young honey, you know, of a legal age. We just want them, you know, from 18 to, like, I guess mid-30s, for fuck's sake. Hey, my friends, you see, so that's kind of the thing, is you kind of get over there in age as a man, your realistic possibility or the realistic sanity of having a child kind of decreases. So at most you have fucking optimistically, you have 10 years on a woman. Fucking boo fucking who, you know? Is that anything to cackle about? And the thing is, like, some men do find older ladies attractive. Like, there's a fucking whole category on Pornhub. I myself am not familiar, but I think some of the boys in the audience, if they're honest with themselves, you know, are not fucking strangers to taking a nice kind of slow stroke journey into that 4-letter acronym. I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm starting to mentally break down listening to this drivel.
Because do you guys remember what it was like before puberty, right? Like before, you know, when girls were like, oh, you want to play baseball? Really? Okay, I guess his sister can come along, right? Because it was a drag. You know, I used to play, because I grew up in England in the 70s, and we used to, like, this war obsessed, right? Second World War, we played war games all the time, right? And occasionally, not often, but the girls would come like, we want to play too. And it was like, we don't need a nurse, because that's all you want to be. We heal with man magic.
We heal with man magic.
Will I ever forget that fateful day in March of 1976 when I have received the orders from the mothership to initiate human puberty simulation? I will not. Prior to that point, we have always prioritized male-to-male bonding, with the female being explicitly excluded. In the spirit of this, I ran one of my friendship modules that goes a little bit like this. Hello, neighborhood boys. I am human boy Stefan, a boy no different from the rest. You will be pleased to know that I myself alone have constructed a tree dwelling. Up to 3 individuals, children of average weight, can be in this treehouse at any given point. But for as long as I am in proximity, nobody with an XX chromosome set should be one of those children. These are my rules. If somebody with those characteristics sneaks into my treehouse while I am away on duties, I will easily detect them through odor. This highlighted to the neighborhood boys that little Stefan, in no uncertain terms, will enforce exclusive same-sex bonding in the prepubescent stage.
It was a drag, right? It was a drag, because, you know, play tag, you know, the girly run, right? It's just, it was kind of a drag, and it was like a negative, right? And then suddenly, it literally was for me like one day, girls are like, eh. And the other day it's like, girls. You know, like this tsunami of hormones just jets up from the base of your spine and turns you into a monomaniac.
Prior to male puberty simulation, females were a negative. Bonding was based around no females. After male puberty simulation, females became a positive. Male bonding modules needed to include females. I was ready with the following module. Hello classmates Matthew and Robert. My name is Teenage Stefan. I am no different from you in internal or external anatomy. I am just another bipedal primate looking for my place in the juniors high dominance hierarchy, while also being eager for opportunities for sexual release. And in the spirit of this, let me pose the following inquiry. Am I the only one hot and bothered when Ashley registers in one's visual awareness? According to my chart, she's developing well ahead of her female peers in secondary sexual characteristics. Only a low IQ specimen would deny her a full ability to carry through a human embryo to completion. Who would argue with me if I were to say that one would have to be a human male with homosexual tendencies in order to not take delight in the notion of placing your hand on her posterior and rotating it in a clockwise direction with mild grasping?
And it's like, well, it's possession, basically. There was an ancient Greek philosopher who said what he loved about being in his 70s was he finally felt free of the demon of lust. And I tell you something, even at the time, I don't know if you ever had this thought, even at the time when all of these hormones are coursing through you and all you can think about is girls, at the time, I remember thinking to myself, if girls are so innately appealing, why do I need all these hormones? It's a big question, isn't it? It's a big question.
I have often inquired of my companions whether the male-female dynamic would be sustainable in the way that it exists now. Let's say if they were intergalactic lizard without an ability to feel orgasm that can replicate itself through internal cloning. But then the mothership has ordered me to stop talking about this.
And I remember that, like girls going from kind of annoying to like the reason to get out of bed in the morning, the reason why I had to pretend to play tennis to explain my carpal tunnel, I mean, all of that. Take a moment. So, when you get that full-on geyser of hormones that just makes you think about girls all the time, there is that question, like, and you lose your reason. What's the craziest thing you did in your teens to get women's attention or to please women?
Human puberty simulation doesn't come without its challenges. One day a bipedal female asked me to borrow a pencil during a test. Fearing that she was running a courtship module, I felt that I had to comply. I gave her the requested fertility offering and was left without a pencil of my own to take a test. She probably assumed that I had a second pencil when I gave her mine, but I assumed that this was a courtship initiation test, so I gave her my only pencil. Fearing that my place in the dominance hierarchy will be severely compromised if I asked for my pencil back or asked the teacher for a pencil, I decided to puncture my own finger and complete the exam with my blood, or the imitation red ink that's running through my veins.
I'll give you mine. Well, no, that's not the craziest. So I had a math test that was really, really important. And I had a pencil. And the girl in front of me turned around and said, "Hey, can I use your pencil?" I had one pencil. I said, "Listen, I don't want genetic death, so here you go." I gave her my pencil. Whereas, you know, like a year earlier, it'd be like, hey, you don't have a pencil. No, and it's weird because I'm like sitting there at my test, like literally thinking, can I gouge my finger and write in blood the answers to this math question? That's how insane it becomes. Can't say no, can't upset the ladies. It's genetic death. You know, I can survive without doing well on a math test, but I cannot survive women saying no to me, which is genetically completely true. Oh, and I got another one. I was at a friend of mine's place, and there were these two gymnasts. Okay, sorry. Just having a private moment. They were showing how they could, like, I won't do it here, but you could, like, head down like a tripod and your legs go up on the wall. And of course, you know, they do this and their tops, you know, you see their bellies and it's gymnast tautness and all that. It's like very attractive, right? So I'm like, oh, I could do that. Now, I was a runner, I was a swimmer, tennis, and I was not any kind of gymnast. I have the flexibility of your average slab of sidewalk. So I do this, and I figured the best way to do it is to take a run at it, you know, to get some momentum. What did I do? I just put my head through the wall. So this is just crazy stuff that you do to get and keep the attention of women.
One time I found myself at a human dwelling when two females decided to initiate a fertility dance. I've noticed them playfully jumping around in the kind of ways I have also observed in other mammal species. I will not lie here. Their displays of flesh certainly triggered arousal indicators. Arousal indicators. Not being clueless in the ways of courtship modules, I myself leapt into my own fertility display. Every human male knows that the best way to indicate your high ability to sustain an erection is through feats of gymnastics. Unfortunately, some of my calculations went wrong and I collided headfirst with the wall. The systems indicated damage to the neck that would be fatal to the primate. Thankfully, their laughter distracted them as the scales repaired themselves. So I emerged from the wall with my facial muscles in smile mode. As the mothership left the galaxy, I knew that I came to this planet to find new species of edible insects. And yet I stayed for the philosophical discourse.
To have a fire, you need to go and gather the firewood. And the media doesn't tell them about the wall. When was the last time you saw a story on TV, in the movie theater, anywhere, even online, a story which goes something like this? I wasted my youth. I took the full bloom of my beauty and I squandered it on meaningless, shallow, self-destructive sexual encounters. Like overused Velcro, I lost my capacity to bond. I got an STD or 5. You know, what's it? The cougars, a woman's sexual prime is in her 40s. Well, it's not true, of course. Or it's not true. It's just a way to... It's cougar propaganda, right? And it's just not... It's not true. It's not true. And of course, if you say, well, a woman's sexual prime is in her 40s because she's had so much experience, like that Alanis Morissette song about all of her former lovers, it's like, yeah, I know why it was called Jagged Little Pill, because that's a whole lot of antibiotics to be taking. But you don't hear the story of the woman who's like, oh my God, it's my late 30s. I got to go find a man. I'm almost, like, the shop is closing for babies. I got baby rabies. Got the fever. I want a baby. And now I've got to start trying to attract a man when I've been working a desk job making useless spreadsheets as affirmative action hire for the last 20 years. My butt's wider than a Studebaker and I'm starting to get a mustache. You want some?
Hey guys, so what actually explains this unending blabbering nonsense? It's the real wall. And the real wall is when you're done with your education, when you're done with your adolescence and adulthood, and you go out into the real world. Because whether you're in high school or in college, people are moving about. You have new classes and new people. You have a lot of free time. And then when you hit the 9 to 5, it's over, kind of. It progressively just gets more and more over. As far as your actual ability to meet with people in the real world. There is no community, nobody fucking goes to church, nothing is going on. There's just a world of indifference and we get more and more sensitive, we get more and more isolated, we get more and more fucking used to being alone. One day alone is fine, the next day being alone is also fine. We have our micro entertainment, our little podcasts and weird shit we watch on YouTube, and all this kind of this plethora of things that distract us as year turns into another year. It's kind of like, if you weren't super social then how are you fucking gonna get social now? There are all the incentives and all the opportunities in the world to not be social. And so the number of single people shrinks. And now the only way you can reach out to people is through the internet, where you're just a conglomerate of pixels and whatever shit you typed in there. And yeah, the judgments are going to be superficial. Whatever you suspect is wrong with you, unless you're some sort of an insane incel looking at your wrist size or whatever, chances are it is wrong with you. Like, people are looking at your shitty job and shitty paycheck, your height, your fucking lazy eye, looking somewhere into the distance where you're not alone. I don't know, what's the solution? Like, you go to a yoga studio, you fucking hang out with the Hare Krishnas, you take a fucking class at a community college, you increase your odds at meeting people in the real world. Or you fucking do some equivalent of this online. It's just a fucking numbers game. But we're too lazy. And yet we're tender. Who do we look for tenderness? It's not like, oh, I wish I could hang out with this dude at work. Rather, it is the ladies. It is the ladies toward whom our heart pours out. But they're so cold and so hot. We only look at the hot ones when we're at fucking grocery store. You know, and it's like, and yet they would reject us. So certainly they would. What the fuck? Anyway, so yeah, your suspicions are correct, you know, so you just fucking play the numbers game. I have nothing else to tell. We're just fucking too lazy to do anything.
He really looks great, you know, but I'll tell you, to me, there's something more important than looks, you know? To me, it's underneath what counts. Soul, depth. That's what's important, not looks. I mean, how many times you take a walk in the street, you see a tall, handsome man walking arm in arm with a short, fat, ugly girl. I never saw that. Did you ever see that? I never saw it. I thought I saw that. No, but I mean, looks don't mean nothing. I got a niece, an ugly girl. She got married. She's happy now. She married an ugly guy. And today they got two very ugly kids. In fact, they're all so ugly in a family album. They only keep the negatives. I'll tell you, there's always problems, you know?
And the worst thing to be in life is to be an idiot who demands conceptual schemas and big ideological constructs for everything. Like an idiot who demands big ideas, an idiot who demands kind of structural answers to things. And if you're that kind of a moron and you're stuck on this specific topic, then eventually you're going to meet through the YouTube algorithm with some sort of an asshole, like Stefan Molyneux especially, who's gonna fucking connect the dots for you. Connect the dots until women will become the Jews of loneliness. Women are the Jews of loneliness, much like the Jews, they are responsible for all wars and somehow have great political power and great sexual power over you, and they're like shooting your fucking balls off with a sniper rifle, and they're painting some sort of a target. You know how in the military they paint a target on you and you run away from you and they see you with an infrared light? That kind of happens with military all the time. First they paint a target on you and then they fucking hunt you down. It's very strange what they do in the military. And it's like the women do the same thing. They become like the big power out there, you know, the big octopus, pussy octopus. But then we're gonna fucking show them the finger when they're gonna hit menopause. That's the kind of idiocy you're leading toward.
Women, not super great at debating. Women, not super great at admitting they're wrong. Now, if you want to get engaged in societal debates, and you're not very good at debating, but you can't admit that you're wrong, what do you want? To silence the opposition. To not have certain questions raised. If you can't answer the argument and you can't stand the argument, censorship is what you want. Well, it's funny because I think that you corrupt a man with excessive insults. And I don't mean the kind of like jovial locker room guy insults, but like when you really go for it. And this is what women are trying to break men down with: penis size and incel and you can't get laid and all that kind of stuff, right? Which is really insulting to women, right? Like all I can come up with is saying no. But how do you corrupt a woman?
But how do you corrupt a woman? Well, you corrupt a woman with excessive praise.
I did talk recently on Twitter about makeup. Because, I mean, you guys probably know all of the etiology of makeup, right? So makeup is designed to simulate sexual arousal, right? So lipstick, when a woman gets sexually aroused. But it would be wildly inappropriate for a man to bring signs of sexual arousal to a business meeting, but women do it all the time. All the time. And they don't like to have it pointed out. Because once you see the magic, it's not magic. Knowledge is power with regards to female manipulation. Do you guys know what high heels are for? Yeah, what it does, I'm sorry to do this to you, it's an image you'll never lose. Right, so it puts your butt out, and then, because you're like, so it puts your butt out, and then you go forward, which pushes your boobs out. It's a basic fact, right? You'll notice that the welfare state came before the general condemnation of men in popular culture. The men are idiots, because if you can trick women into taking stuff from men by force through the power of the state, then automatically women will start to denigrate men. Because when you're exploiting someone, you can't think of them as great or good or noble or heroic, or you can't think of them positively at all. You have to denigrate them so you can exploit them. That's why the devil bribes, and then the distrust mounts, the hostility, the hatred mounts. You know, we men, men are way net contributors to the tax system, and women are way withdrawers from the tax system. I mean, the modern democracy is just a gynocentric vote-buying mechanism for women. Here's another thing that women need to hear. A baby is not your body. Don't you always hear that? You got life growing in your belly. I can't imagine. It's like to me like a big Indian meal comes to life. I get bloated, that's what I'm saying. Anyway, so growing a life, it's not your body. Do you know that the baby can have a different blood type than the mom? So yeah, there's that. They choose fields that are less, and come on, they have babies. They have babies. 40% of the women who took MBAs don't even work in business. I mean, I do this call-in show. I've done it for a long time, and women call in. Yeah, I studied to be a doctor, and then, after I had my baby, I just wanted to stay home. And I'm torn, because I'm glad she's staying home, breastfeeding, eye contact, skin contact, great for babies. But at the same time, no concept. I've had lots of women call in with this topic, and not one woman has said this. But I'll tell you this, I feel really, really bad that society spent $1.5 million to train me as a doctor, and I'm not even practicing. Not one. Well, I feel better at home, you see. And that's the end of the story. And it's like, I just see a guy coughing up his lungs on a sidewalk because he can't get to a doctor because we're missing a doctor. The other thing that I wanted to say that women need to hear is, empirically, you're not that attached to your kids. Empirically, you're not that attached to your kids. Evolutionarily speaking, we can understand that. So a woman who was not at all attached to her kids wouldn't take care of them. The kids would die, genetic dead end, right? A woman who's overly attached to her kids, who will fight to the death to protect them should some other tribe come over the hill and kill off the men, what happens to her? Yeah, she's killed. So women have to be both attached to their kids and willing to cut that attachment on a dime if it serves her genetic survival. And again, these are just harsh conditions of evolution, right?
Do women love their children enough to vote for smaller government? I think it's possible.
Stefan just there said so many negative things about women. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, like the amount of real negativity and drivel and just seemingly just hatred that he has toward women. I mean, that presentation was it's just kind of too much. But I just have to say that, like, as a man myself, as a single man specifically, I'm also greatly offended, because it would seem from this that, if you aren't there procreating, if you're not fathering children, if you're not spreading your seed or continuing your bloodline and all this stuff, that it's almost like if you're not doing it, then life is not worth living as a guy. And personally, as somebody who has been single for a long time, I think there are tons of things to do when you're alone. I mean, you can lead a very complete and full life without a partner. like life is just so full of different things to do and different things to explore when you're a single male. It's just amazing. And I really completely reject this idea that, you know, we need a woman to be happy. We need a woman to fulfill us. And honestly, this is nothing against women whatsoever. This has nothing to do with like disliking women or not valuing the company. And if you find a woman to be with, like, all the happiness to you from me. Like, I'm just really happy for you. But then, on the other hand, why is there like an automatic assumption, just kind of an automatic assumption that you're now happier than I am because I'm single? Really, like, a single male life could be just an adventure, just an amazing adventure. I feel that's just how I feel. That's just how I feel. And in the spirit of this, maybe there are some guys there who right now kind of are despairing or having a hard time of it. And I just would like to make a few suggestions about things to do, you know, in a kind of a single male life, things that are completely neglected, and just things that kind of, you know, light up your life and make it more interesting and sort of exciting. Just to kind of, this is just a list of suggestions that single man can do to just have a good time alone. And the first one, it might sound a little bit strange or kind of out of the blue or something, but the first suggestion is Legos. Legos. There's this idea out there that Legos are for kids. And this, of course, some Legos are for kids, but there are some other Legos they make men. Like, these Legos are really for adults. Like, kids can't master them. Like, there are so many pieces you can put together. And the thing about Legos is just different pieces just fit neatly together according to instructions. You know, everything is very linear and just kind of 1, 2, 3 direction success. Kind of everything kind of fits together, unlike life. Well, anyway, it's like, you know, it's people say, like, you need to really develop your inner child, but you don't want that inner child to be very stupid. You kind of want it to grow. So you really kind of, you can now get Legos that you couldn't get before. But it's like with these adult Legos, it's not like you're staying on that level. Like, you're advancing as a human being, and you're also fulfilling your inner child. And like, who would have a time to play with Legos, you know, if you're just kind of with a woman or, you know, have a family life? Like, this is a time to really treat and indulge yourself with Legos. Some of these Legos sure are pricey. I mean, they're pricey, but it's like, what are we going to spend our money on? It's like half the paycheck, sometimes kind of loads of fun. What are we going to spend the money on? Like memberships on different websites? No, we're going to spend it on Legos. And these Legos, like some of these, like this Lego Technic series, like this bucket wheel excavator, wow. This is above my pay grade, this one. I'm not ready. I really respect the guys who do this stuff. I mean, this is really some hardcore, like, constructing and putting together of things.
And then you actually can start turning the machine. So like in the real life, it actually start turning the machine in here, and then it also takes the other soil. And then I put the thing here that is actually synchronized. So it actually stays with the machine here. And when you turn the machine, the bricks will still fall into the truck here. I have to stop it now before we run into our mine here.
But I like something a little bit easier, something kind of a little on a different kind of something that really speaks to my heart, something that's just kind of easy to do, is sort of doable for me, for myself. And the one I like is the Lego Disney Steamboat Willie. That's the one I like. And it's really kind of a retro series, you know, from not kind of the more modern Mickey Mouse, but more of like a black and white kind of retro series. And I really like how they're on a boat together and it's all sort of contained. Everything is just very kind of linear and everything is just sort of, kind of like put together well. Everything is where it belongs on Steamboat Willie. And I was putting it together the other day, and a few pieces were missing. Just a few pieces, and yeah, dude, I didn't lose them. They were all on the table. They were on the table together, and just some pieces were missing. It's not just me. You read the Amazon reviews, okay? It happens once in a while. Like sometimes, the pieces aren't there. Everything doesn't kind of come together in a simple manner. And okay, well, I guess I betrayed once again, I guess. Betrayed once again with that. But you know what? I'm not a kid anymore. I'm grown. I'm going to call that the Lego customer service. We're going to sort it out. That's kids don't do it. They don't call customer service. So that's the Legos for you. These are the Legos. It's one of the many things a single man can do and just have loads of fun, endless fun with these Legos, with this kind of putting together of things. The other thing all of us can do is, of course, science. I mean, you remember the science class, the science lab back in high school? Everybody is yippity-yapping, kind of trying to flirt, trying to start things. Well, we're done trying to start things like that, or at least kind of we're fine with not starting things. So let's do some science. Let's have fun with science. It's kind of like when you're alone, you have everything you have the time, you have the space, you can buy the implements, and it's like you really don't need to be some sort of a fancy pants PhD to really do exciting things with science, exciting things with chemistry and stuff like that. For example, I myself, not some sort of an Einstein or anything like that, nothing like that. And with a few household products and just a few things I bought for cash, it's like now there's just this kind of an amazing barrel of acid in my basement. Alright guys, science. This is a friend of the single man. Just kind of amateur, average guy science. And what I like to do is different experiments. For example, sometimes I find some roadkill and I put it in my bathtub of acid. And I go to my meaningless job. And then when I'm back, it's largely gone. It's dissipated into almost nothing. Now what remains are a few bones and like some coagulated kind of gooey matter around them, just a little bit. And also, of course, you have some floating fur, just little chunks of fur that didn't have the gravitational pull to really kind of go down there. Yeah, that's what I find when I come home, and it's kind of like a circle of life, a bit expedited, a little bit expedited. Everything deteriorates, but there it can deteriorate a little bit faster, right? What the fuck you looking at me for? I didn't kill it. I didn't kill it. I found it by the abandoned gas station at 3 in the morning. Science. There's just things to do. Always different projects. Always different things to discover with science if you're a single man. Science. Different things to find out. Different experiments with science. And then, of course, there are the great outdoors. The great outdoors. Who's forgetting about the great outdoors? Frankly, everyone. Now, I don't mean to fat shame. But man-to-man talk, I see one lard ass after another. How do you hold that big ass? Man. It's just unbelievable, guys. Come on, let's kind of get off the couches. Let's drop the Cheetos. Let's go into the great outdoors. Can you go explore the woods with your family, with your kids, with your loving wife who fulfills you completely? Of course you can. Of course you can. You can do that. But there's nothing like being a man alone in the woods. Just one man in the woods. Just one man in the woods. Look out for ticks, for deer ticks. Lyme disease can be very difficult to handle. And, you know, what is there to do in the woods? Well, of course, wood carving. You don't have to do anything sophisticated. There, again, right? Let's not be caught up with perfectionism. We're not going to be carving like Mount Rushmore or something. It's just enough to just kind of sharpen some sticks. Just find some sticks and just sharpen them. And of course, when it comes to doing things like that, we need some tools. We need to find the right tools, right? We need the right instrument, motherfucker. In the woods, just kind of having fun in the woods. And with a thing like this, it's really important to carve, you know, in the opposite direction from your body. That way, nobody gets hurt. That way. Nobody gets hurt if everybody just follows instructions. If they just do as they're told by the folk wisdom, by just kind of, you know, basic safety measures is what I'm talking about. So let's hit the woods, my friends. Let's kind of find what's out there, what's in the woods. What is in the woods? Let's find out. So guys, we have a lot on our plate already. A lot of things to do for single guys to lead full and interesting lives, right? So we got the Legos, we got amateur science, and we have exploring the outdoors, you know, looking into the woods. And last but not least is going downtown. Now there is a myth of Bigfoot out there that many people believe in. But there's also a big myth that if you're single, if you're a single guy, you shouldn't go downtown. It's like you either go there with a lady or friends or to find a lady. Well, I say no to all of that. I mean, yes to all of that, but no to the idea that this is somehow the requirement, right? That all the magnetism of the downtown is like being some sort of a chimp or some sort of an animal who've reached maturity, who has to go to the big flock to find a mate or something. This is not how it works for me. I go to the downtown to see the folks. I mean, you live in the burbs, so boring. Everybody's the same. You go downtown, all kinds of characters. All kinds of characters. There's just so many different folks up there. Everybody's just mixing together, you know, having a good time. And why shouldn't you join them? Why shouldn't you? And frankly, I never get out of the car downtown. I just tend to drive by. But even this is enough, just kind of driving by, kind of looking around at interesting folks, interesting people around me. Just kind of driving around. I get the energy. I get that vibe, that electricity of downtown, even when I'm in my vehicle. Now, of course, the kings and queens of downtown are the youngsters. They go there to jive at the clubs, you know, to mingle. You know, if you're single, get ready to mingle. That kind of, oh, you know what they do. We know what they do. But I'm not one of those people who really worships youth. I look for substance. And I really go to the road less traveled downtown. I'm talking about, you know, the bridges, under the bridges, kind of in the more abandoned industrial area. And who do you find there? It's the homeless, just kind of the most neglected folks in our society. And I'd love to give them money. You know, I'd love to give them a few bucks here and there. But frankly, I might as well just give money to Mr. Popov, if you know what I mean. Exactly, man. So I just tend to support them, I guess, with my hard-earned tax money. That's how I support those guys. And the one thing I noticed about them, just observing them from my car a lot, is that some of them really don't value their own lives. It's like they're so beaten down by life, that they just don't care anymore almost. And so this results in just kind of careless pedestrian activity, frankly, careless jaywalking, really without any concern for anyone, either their own safety or those of the drivers. And you know, love frankly comes in all forms, in all shapes and forms. And whether it's great people like Winston Churchill or Margaret Thatcher, or just kind of all kinds of people like that, you know, the reason they succeeded in life is because somebody gave them love, tough love. And that's what I believe. You know, I'm not just gonna let these guys be neglected out there on the street, or like, you know, carelessly breaking the law by jaywalking everywhere, just kind of crossing the street. The speed limit is very high, and sometimes, you know, drivers could be careless and the homeless, and this is a collision waiting to happen. A collision waiting to happen. And so just to kind of, you know, to really emphasize the point, to really highlight things, and to frankly, you know, preserve their lives in the long term, even if in the short term it causes some psychological discomfort, what I do is I just sit under the bridge, and then when I see a homeless person crossing the street where there is no sign or where it's utterly inappropriate, I just speed up real fast and I fucking stop within like, usually about, I would say, like 2 to 1 feet in front of them. So you know how it is nowadays in the world. You find me one person who takes responsibility for their actions. And with these guys, it's no different. It's always like just blame somebody else. And so they usually start with something like, hey man, what the fuck are you doing? And I just respond with, hey useless bum, if you see a pedestrian crosswalk here, you must be off your medication. This is not safe what you're doing, and these are the consequences you face. You have to be careful. You have to take your ass off of here and just cross where the law permits you to cross, not where you feel like it. Maybe if you had some sense of discipline, some sense of limits, some sense of propriety, you wouldn't find yourself as just kind of basically useless human debris. Here they start with the usual sob story, things I have heard a million times. Kind of like the usual trope, you know, the homeless veteran, right? I saw fucking 3 Arabs at a military base in Kuwait, and now I fucking can't fill out an application for McDonald's. Yeah, you motherfucker, you show me your fucking medal right now. Right, must have been a fucking closeout sale at the fucking Toys R Us around here, you piece of shit. Oh, you have the papers for it. You got the papers for it. I got some shit I drew with a crayon. It says I was fucking working undercover for the CIA in Iran. Motherfucker. Now the one thing you're not gonna do. The one thing you're not gonna do is move any closer to my vehicle. I got fucking everything in my trunk to make your ass disappear forever. I care as much about your life as your family. Now you just move away from me and just forget the whole thing. You're just gonna move away. I don't want to see anything anymore. Just gonna move away. Gonna move away from my vehicle. You're gonna move away. Turn around. You're gonna move away. You're gonna move away. Gonna get away from my vehicle. I don't need to see your medal. I don't need to see anything anymore. You're just gonna move away. Gonna move away. Gonna move away from my vehicle. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to see anything anymore. I don't want to see anything anymore. I don't want to see anything anymore. So anyway, who said a single guy can't have fun downtown? There's like so many things going on. So many things. Downtown, in the woods, playing with the Legos, putting things together. Putting things together. Putting things together. Putting things together.
If you are the dealer, I'm out of the game. If you are the healer, means I'm broken and lame. If thine is the glory, then mine must be the shame. You want it darker, we kill the flame. Magnified, sanctified be thy holy name. Vilified, crucified in the human frame. A million candles burning for the help that never came. You want it darker. Hey, nay, 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 nay. I'm ready, my lord. There's a lover in the story, but the story's still the same. There's a lullaby for suffering and a paradox to blame. But it's written in the scriptures and it's not some idle claim. You want it darker, we kill the flame. They're lining up the prisoners and the guards are taking aim. I struggled with some demons, they were middle class and tame. I didn't know I had permission to murder and to maim. You want it darker. Hey, nay, 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 nay. I'm ready, my lord. Magnified, sanctified be thy holy name. Vilified, crucified in the human frame. A million candles burning for the love that never came. You want it darker, we kill the flame.